So here I have the same song I was working on in the Getting Started video, and it's in basically the same shape as we left it off in, except that I have added one more chord follow track with a nice cheesy 80s synthesizer sound, just to add some extra texture. So we have a pretty solid 8 bars worth of music here to get started. But the question is, where do we go from here? Fortunately, Scalar 3 has all sorts of tools built in to help you develop your song further and find new chords and come up with new chord progressions. You'll find most of these tools on the Create page. First of all, we have the Circle of Fifths page. Now, the Circle of Fifths is a very popular compositional tool to help you find related chords and scales. We have our major scales listed around the outside and our minor scales listed around the inside. These are all organized in a way where the closer two scales are to each other, the more notes they share in common. So C major and G major share all but one note. So you'll find C major and G major chords work quite well together. And the same goes for C major and F major. And whenever we select a scale on the Circle of Fifths, we see a very long row of chords appear to the right, showing us lots of variations of the root chord of that scale. So lots of fun chords here to explore. I'm also going to turn off my main track's motion just while I'm exploring these chords. If there is a particular chord you're looking for that you can't see in the list, you can always type it into the search chord field below. For example, F major 9. But there's a lot more we can do on the Circle of Fifths page by selecting chords on our main track. For example, if I select this A minor chord, at the top of the screen, we see all sorts of alternative chord suggestions, with lots of variations of that A minor chord. Also, whenever we click on a chord on our main track, we see those chord notes displayed on the keyboard at the bottom of the screen. This is how we can edit chords, by very easily turning notes on or off. So I've turned this A minor chord into an A minor 7 chord. Now let's modify this G major chord. Now let's move on to a brand new feature of Scalar 3, and that's the Explore page. On first glance, this might look quite similar to the Circle of Fifths, but it's actually a very different concept altogether. Here we basically have pre-made collections or constellations of chords, all based around a particular genre and mood. For example, we can select the cinematic genre and choose the dark mood. Now we're given a collection of chords all suitable for writing cinematic music in more of a dark mood. Or we can change the mood to bright to get some much brighter sounding chords. You can hear they're often voiced quite a bit higher than the dark mood chords. All of these chord presets are based around a particular key, and that key is indicated by the lower middle chord, in this case B major. All of the chords around the inner circle, including this very top chord, are the more diatonic chords with regards to this key, so all of these chords are built using notes of the B major scale. This is also indicated by the colour of the chords. They all have this bright blue colour. The chords around the outer circle tend to be the more adventurous chords, often including one or multiple notes from outside of our scale. The light blue chords have one note outside of the scale, and the grey chords feature 2 or more notes outside of our scale. You may be noticing when I select these chords that all of the chords' colours are changing. That's because we have this dynamic scale mode activated. With this enabled, whenever we select a chord, Scalar identifies the closest matched scale to that particular chord. So for this B major chord, it selected the B major scale. When I click on this F minor chord, it selects the F minor scale. When a new dynamic scale is selected, the colours of all the other Explore page chords automatically change to reflect their relationship to this new scale. This makes it very easy to find chords related to whatever chord you played last, which is great for creating a smooth sounding chord progression. On top of all this, the Explore page chords are organized in a way where the brighter or more major sounding chords tend to be on the right hand side. And the darker, more minor sounding chords tend to be on the left hand side. Now this song that I'm working on has more of a synthwave type of vibe, so let's choose the synthwave genre. This is a fairly bright sounding song, so let's stick with the bright mood preset. And have a listen to some of these chords. They all sound quite nice. The only problem is, this particular preset was written in the key of F major, and my song is in the key of C major. So there's two possible solutions we can take here. One option would be to transpose my entire song up to the key of F major, which we can do quite easily using the semi, plus and minus buttons. Note that when I transpose my chords, all of my additional tracks also get transposed. So now my whole song is in the key of F major. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that sound, so let's transpose the song back down to C major. A more effective strategy might be to instead transpose the Explore page chords into C major. This is done very easily by clicking on the little lock icon to the right of the Explore page. As you can see, my root chord is now C major. And the rest of the chords have also transposed to match this new key. So let's try to come up with some new chords to continue our song. These work quite well together. So I could just drag all these chords down into my main track, but if I'm not quite sure I want to start cluttering up my main track just yet, I can alternatively add them to the sketch page. On the sketch page, we have 7 mini progressions we can use just to try out some different chord progression ideas. And we can add chords to the sketch page via the right-click menu. So we can just hold down Command or Control while we click on a few of these chords. With these chords selected, we can right-click and choose Add to Sketch Progression 1. And now we have those chords available to us on the sketch page. So we can start trying out some different sequences here. And we can listen to that progression as a sequence by clicking on the play button. Or even choose a motion to play that sequence just here on the sketch page. And when we're happy with how things are sounding, we can select these chords, right-click, and choose Add to Main Track. And this just adds them to the very end of our main track progression. Then we might want to head back to the Arrange page and start playing around with the timing a little bit more. I'm going to set my division to a finer resolution of 1/8 so I can be a bit more precise with these. And I'm just going to tinker a little bit with the timing of these chords. Now if I just want to focus on these 4 bars for a little while, I can turn on loop mode and move my loop region to just cover these last 4 bars. One interesting thing to note is that when you're running Scalar 3 as a plugin in a DAW like I am here, the default playback mode is DAW Sync Mode. This means when you press play in your DAW, Scalar 3 will automatically move its playback position to match wherever your DAW is up to. Because I just want to loop these last 4 bars in Scalar independently of what my host DAW is doing, I'm going to right-click on the play button and disable DAW Sync Mode. Okay, this is sounding quite good. If I want any of my additional instrument tracks to play in this section, I just have to drag their MIDI clips out to cover these new chords. Now they'll continue playing whatever they were playing before, but to this new chord progression. With the bass track, however, I'd like it to play a different pattern for these new chords. So instead of stretching its MIDI clip, I'll move my mouse to the empty space and click once to add a new clip. I'll stretch this new clip to cover these new chords. And with this new MIDI clip selected, I can open this bass track's pattern browser and find a new bass motion to use. Okay, I think this will work well. If I decided I didn't want my main track piano part to play in this section at all, instead of muting the entire track, I can hold down Shift and click on these individual chords to mute just these chords. Now let's look at what other changes we can make to these MIDI clips using the Modifier controls. I'm going to select my new bass clip, open the MIDI editor, and scroll down to the parameter called length. Currently all these bass notes are quite short staccato notes. But we can very easily make these longer, more sustained notes by increasing the length modifier. And if we find they still sound too low pitched, we can always move the octave up one increment. Note that these changes only affect the new bass clip, not the previous bass clip. Let's hear how that sounds now. Now I'll bring in some additional instrument parts. And let's hear them all together. One other trick I can do to try to emphasize the rhythm of my chords a little bit more is to choose the Scissor tool and break my arpeggio pattern into some smaller sections. This forces the pattern to restart whenever I create a new clip.